The French Guards were an infantry regiment of the military household of the King of France under the Ancien Régime. The French Guards, who were located in Paris, played a major part in the French Revolution as most of the guardsmen defected to the revolutionary cause and ensured the collapse of absolute monarchy in France. French Guards led the storming of the Bastille and formed the cadre for the National Guard. History. The regiment was created in 1563 by Charles IX. With a strength of 9,000 men it counted 30 companies in 1635 with 300 fusiliers per company. They were armed with a form of musket or steel-handled pikes, and were allowed to conduct a normal civilian life in times of peace. In practice this meant that they could undertake civilian employment when not required on duty. At Catherine de' Medici's insistence, they were at first spread over several garrisons, but after the attempted kidnapping of King Charles IX near Meaux by Huguenots, the Guards were brought back together specifically to protect the monarch. Privileges, role and organization. In times of war the Gardes Françaises had the privilege of choosing their own battle positions. Other privileges included being that of leading the assault when a wall was breached during a siege, the first choice of barracks, and special rights of trial. When on parade, the Gardes Françaises took precedence over all other regiments in the Royal Army. The French Guards shared responsibility for guarding the exterior of the palaces of Versailles with the Gardes Suisses. In addition, the French Guards had responsibility for maintaining public order in Paris, in support of the various police forces of the capital. In 1789 the French Guards constituted the largest element of the household troops. 6 grenadier and 24 fusilier companies were divided into the 6 battalions that comprised the full regiment. The total number of French Guards amounted to about 3,600 men. The regimental colonel usually held the rank of Marshal of France. Captains of the grenadier companies ranked as colonels in the infantry of the line. There was 1 grenadier company and 4 fusilier companies to each battalion. Image and recruitment basis. The subsequent image of the Gardes Françaises as a socially elite palace unit led solely by courtier officers may be largely incorrect. The majority of the regimental officers were from outside Paris, and some, such as the future Maréchal Faber, did not have even the status of provincial aristocrats. The rank and file were recruited from all over France, but through marriages and off-duty employment quickly established local ties in Paris. A consideration which was to influence the behavior at the outbreak of the French Revolution. Guardsmen were enlisted for a minimum of 8 years and were required to be French nationals with a minimum height of 1.73 meters, compared with the 1.68 meters of line infantry soldiers. The reported incident at the Battle of Fontenoy, where officers of the Gardes Françaises and their English counterparts invited each other to fire first, is sometimes cited as an example of excessive chivalry amongst aristocrats. However, in 18th-century warfare the unit which held its fire until it was closest to the enemy would be able to deliver the most effective volley. Uniform. During the years 1685 to 1789 the regiment wore dark king's blue coats with red collars, cuffs and waistcoats. Breeches were red and leggings were white. Grenadiers had high fur hats, while the fusilier companies wore the standard tricorne of the French infantry. Coats and waistcoats were heavily embroidered in white of silver braid. Role in the French Revolution. The sympathy shown by the Gardes Françaises for the French Revolution at its outbreak was crucial to the initial success of the rising. The other 2 units of the Maison Militaire du Roi de France at this time, the Swiss Swiss Guards and the Bodyguard, were loyal to the king, but they were smaller units than the Gardes Françaises and lacked the Parisian connections of the latter regiment. During weeks of disturbances prior to early July 1789 leading up to the fall of the Bastille, the regiment initially obeyed orders and on several occasions acted against the increasingly unruly crowds. In April, during a riot at the Revellion factory, guardsmen had fired on a hostile crowd, killing and wounding several hundred. However, in addition to local ties with the Parisians, the regiment was resentful of the harsh Prussian-style discipline introduced by its colonel, the Duc du Châtelet, who had taken up his appointment the year before. The officers of the regiment had negligently left day-to-day control in the hands of the non-commissioned officers, and had limited interaction with the men. These considerations led to desertions from the 27th of June on an incident on the 12th of July where French Guards fired on the Royal Allemand Regiment, and the final defection of most of the rank and file on the 14th of July. Reportedly, only one of the sergeants stood by the officers when they tried to reassemble the men in the courtyard of the Paris barracks of the Guard. Of the 6 battalions comprising the whole of the regiment, the equivalent of only 1 battalion remained obedient to orders. The mutineers played a key role in the attack on the Bastille, where they are credited with the effective use of artillery cannons and with preventing a massacre of the garrison after surrender. Following the fall of the Bastille, the Gardes Françaises petitioned to resume the guard duties at Versailles. However, this proposal was declined and the regiment was formally disbanded on the 31st of August 1789. The Gardes Françaises subsequently provided the professional corps of the new Garde Nationale. As such, they acted under the command of the Marquis de Lafayette to restore order when a mob from Paris invaded the Palace of Versailles at dawn on the 6th of October 1789, and escorted the royal family to Paris in the afternoon of the same day. In October 1792, the former French Guards were distributed amongst the newly raised volunteer units being mobilized for war. In the final role, the erstwhile Royal Guardsmen provided cadres for the revolutionary armies of 1792 to 1802. Following the Bourbon Restoration of 1814, attempts were made to recreate most of the various military units that had formerly made up the royal household. However, the defection of the Gardes Françaises at a crucial point in the revolution could not be forgotten, and no attempt was made to re-establish the regiment. Battles: Lens, Fleurus, Steenkerk, Ramillies, Malplaquet, Dettingen, Fontenoy. The storming of the Bastille. Notable members: Pierre de Montesquieu d'Artagnan, Nicolas Catinat, Abraham de Faber, Louis Friand, Lazare Hoche, François-Joseph Lefebvre.